Hello everyone, it's Jen. Welcome back to another project for heffydoodle. Today we have a fun Halloween card with these little pups trick-or-treating. I'm going to use the little chihuahua from Who Let the Dogs Out, as well as the fence, the doghouse, and the party hat. I'm using our little superhero dog here from the Rescue Dogs mini stamp set. A few of the images from Absotoothly Awesome so that I can have the little chihuahua dressed up as a fairy. I'm going to use the tiny little flag from Happily Ever Crafter, and then the Happy Halloween sentiment from the Holiday Sentiment Duos. I'm also going to bring in a couple of images here from this Halloween themed lawn fawn stamp called Costume Party, just to fill out the little scene that I'm making for this card. So as always, I'm going to start off with the coloring. Today I'm using my Copic markers. So I really wanted to stick to a Halloween color palette. I'm using orange, green, purple, and black. So I thought it would be fun to color up the little doghouse white with black accents. So for the black, I'm using C7 as my darkest, C5 as the midtone, and then C3 as the lightest. And you could see there at the beginning, I just laid down that C3 marker first just to get that paper saturated so it helps with the blending. So for the darkest marker, I'm just having that to the outer side and the top of the door, and then the bottom part of the roof of the little doghouse. So then I'm blending that out with the midtone and then using the lightest marker. So I did have to blend out the center of that door a little bit, but once that dries, it will fade back a little bit. So for the white on the fence and then the main part of the doghouse, I'm using C3 as the darkest, C1 as the midtone, and then C0 as the lightest. I will bring in my colorless blender as well, just to blend that out and have those light gray marker colors just fade back a little bit. So I did go a little bit darker on the clouds just because this is a nighttime scene. So I wanted them to be a little bit darker than maybe I normally would for a daytime scene. So just going to finish up with the white here. I'm actually going to just show you the fence post and the clouds, and then I'll skip through the doghouse. But for the doghouse, I just added the darkest shades under the roof, and then to either side of the house, and then where those lines are drawn for the panels of the doghouse. Super easy to color up in the white. So here I'm just bringing in that colorless blender like I mentioned, and that will just blend that out nicely. And then I'm going to move on to the orange. So I'm using YR18, YR15, and YR21. This little bone's pretty tiny, but I also use it for the pumpkins and the little banners, which are actually party hats from the Who Let the Dogs Out set. Now for the purple, I'm using V17, V15, and then V12. The green color combination is YG25, YG03, and YG21. For this gold color, I'm not sure it turned out how I was thinking, but I wanted a saturated yellowy gold color. I'm using Y28, YR24, and YR23. I find the gold color combination is a bit tricky, and I do go over this a couple times. Now, if you want to see all of the color combinations, I will have a color map at the end of the video, as well as in the coordinating blog post over on the heffydoodle blog. So for the Chihuahua, I'm using E34, E31, and E51. So today I'm using mostly a 3-color blend. And these colors blend beautifully together if you want kind of that light tan color. So this little guy is super easy to color up. He's so cute with his little smile. I am going to add some rosy cheeks there with the R20. Now for the little superhero dog, I'm using E25, and then I'm bringing back that E34 and E31. When I'm doing animals, I like to often use some of the same colors, but just maybe switch up 1 or 2 markers. And then they have that same color palette to them, yet you can see here bringing in that E25 makes this dog coloring quite different, but yet I think they still match quite well. For their noses, I'm using E49. And at this point, or before this, I wasn't quite sure what color I wanted to do the superhero costume. I could have done a traditional blue, red, and yellow, but I really wanted to keep to the color palette that I already had. So I decided to make him more like a Batman costume. So I'm doing the black color combination, the same one I used on the doghouse for the mask and the cape. And then I'm going to bring back that gold color for his collar and for his little outfit there that has the cute little heart on it. And I think that just ties in everything nicely. It picks up on the moon, and then I also colored the dog collar on the Chihuahua the same. So for the fairy wings, I'm just using BG10, and then I'll blend that out with the colorless blender. Super simple, and I'm just going to cut out those wings once I'm done. Now for everything that I colored in the gold, I'm going to use my Lawn Fawn glitter pen here. I thought this just might help add a little bit of extra fun to those elements. So I'm quickly going to do a Distress Oxide background. For the grass, I'm using Twisted Citron and Mowed Lawn. So I'm mainly doing full coverage of the Twisted Citron, and then I'm going to bring that Mowed Lawn on the ends of the paper. Now this is Bristol Smooth cardstock that I'm using for the ink blending. When I'm doing a larger area, I still really like to use my Tim Holtz mini blenders or the blending tool. I'm going to concentrate most of that Mowed Lawn on the outer edges of my card panel. I will blend it a little bit upwards just to get a nice smooth blend, but I really want the center of the lawn area there to kind of glow that bright green. So for my sky, I'm just using some black soot Distress Oxide ink here. I'm just going to bring in a little piece of scrap cardstock to put under my fingers so that I don't get fingerprints. I'm not worried about where the two different colors meet because that will be covered up by the fence. So I'm just going to add some water here to oxidize the ink. I wanted to concentrate that mostly on the sky. And then I'm going to add some white gouache, some splatters here. I'll add a little bit of water to that. I'm just using a really inexpensive stamp block. I kind of keep this one aside for doing ink splatters. This is just one I picked up at Michael's, I think in a dollar bin. So I did get quite a few larger splatters than I had hoped for, but that's kind of the fun with ink splatters or paint splatters. You never quite know what you're going to get. So I did just want to dab that up a little bit with a paper towel, and then I can set this aside to dry. So now I can go ahead and start creating my scene here. So I did want to pull out the sentiment just so I could see placement in terms of where I wanted to line up this fence. Now with the fence, you can see that the centers of the fence posts do not cut out. It didn't bother me for this card that they were white. I don't feel like it's the feature of the card, so I don't really think that anyone would notice unless I pointed it out, but you could always go ahead and color in that area between the fence posts if that's something that might bother you. So you can see here I have my little doghouse popped up already on some foam tape. I am just going to adhere the fence posts down with liquid adhesive. Just using some art glitter glue here. And I'm going to line those up so they're touching but not overlapping. And this allows for some of that green and black to kind of pop through where those fence posts meet. And I think that also helps create the illusion of the background behind it, given I didn't color in between those fence posts. So here I just took off the release paper of the doghouse, and I'm going to add this little flag from the Happily Ever Crafter to the top. I just thought this added a fun element to my little trick-or-treat party scene here, and it fits perfectly on top of that house. So now I'm going to work on the banners. Now, as I mentioned, this is actually meant to be a party hat in the Who Let the Dogs Out set. And when I originally saw this stamp set, my brain went to a pennant or a banner. So I thought it would be really fun to decorate the fence posts with the little party hat here upside down like a banner. So I'm just switching out the colors. So I'm doing a repeat pattern in the purple, the green, the orange, and the black. I'm using my little embellishment wand here. This is new to me and I'm really liking it. You can see there I'm using the sticky part to help while I'm adding the glue. And then I'm using that fine metal tip there to help me actually adhere these little pennants down. So for some of the pennants, I just want to overlap where the fence posts meet, and then it also kind of hides the fact that they are separate pieces. Now for the orange one closest to the doghouse, I'm going to tuck it behind the doghouse. And again, that just helps create an illusion of having that banner continue behind it. And then I'll just finish off adding the last two to the right hand side, the black and the purple one. Now if you wanted to add a piece of string behind all of the banners, I think that would be cute too. Or you could draw a little line to connect them, but I was fine with just having them loose like that. I'm going to bring in this little treat bowl. This is from the Lawn Fawn costume party, and I'm going to have that sitting outside of the little dog house. And then I'm just going to lay out the rest of my images here so I can figure out where I want to adhere them. Here's a look at the little fairy wings that I cut out from Absotoothly Awesome. I'm going to add that to the Chihuahua and then the little wand in her hand. Now I quickly bring in the crown, but I felt like it was too big for this smaller dog. If you're adding extra dogs to a scene like this and you use one of the bigger ones, I definitely think the crown would work. But you can see it's just a little too big, and so I decided just to go with the wings and the wand. So I will add some foam tape to the two little dogs, and you can see there I've stamped and colored 3 of the pumpkins from the costume party set. Now this card was really about using your everyday stamps to create a Halloween card. Really like to do that with holiday cards. So if you don't have a Halloween stamp with the pumpkins, you could always make your own, or you could just add extra dogs to the scene, and I think that would look really cute as well. For the sentiment, I'm going to do some masking because I want Happy Halloween to be in an orange color, and I'm going to pull out my Catherine Pooler inks. This is Tiki Torch, I think it's called. Yeah. So I am going to stamp this a few times. I'll only share one kind of stamping of it here. But I think I did it 3 times, and then I went ahead and masked the top of the stamp, and I'm just going to use my Versafine Clair Nocturne ink here for the bottom. So I thought the orange and black was quite fitting for the Halloween sentiment, and the bottom reads, "Hope you have a simply spooktacular day." I'm going to grab my trimmer here, and I'll just go ahead and cut this down. Now I like to line up the top of my sentiment with the furthest edge of that clear panel that overlays the bottom of the trimmer. And I'm going to tuck the sentiment behind the little flag on the doghouse. So for the left-hand side, I'm just going to cut a fishtail banner here by hand. So the easiest way is to cut a straight line down the center and then angle your scissors towards each center from each edge. Now this one I didn't quite get to the middle there on the first go, so I just trimmed that up a second time. I'm going to adhere the banner just with some liquid glue, and then I will figure out where I want the placement of my moon and clouds, which I've also popped up on some foam tape. So I do just change the position of this. There's a little V between the clouds, and so I decided to line that up with the bottom of the fishtail. Just kind of tucks in there nicely, even though there's a little bit of space. So there's the scene pretty much completed. So now I just want to add some final touches. So I'm using my black glaze pen here for the dog's nose and for the jack-o'-lantern faces, as well as the little heart on the superhero costume. Once I finish that, I'm going to bring in my white gel pen. I'm going to add some highlights to each of the jack-o'-lanterns, the cape on the dog, and then on the little fairy wings. And also I'm going to add a pretty bold line here to the right-hand side of the dog door. And you can see how that just brings that door to life. Now I decided to add more sparkle, so I'm bringing in my Spectrum Noir glitter pen here, and I had just kind of squeezed it. You can't really tell on video, but this is super sparkly. It's so pretty. I haven't been using my Spectrum Noir marker a lot, and so I forgot how glittery this one actually is. Loved it. So I just kind of tilt the card here, hoping that you could see the glitter, but you can't see it that great on video, but in person it's super cute. So here's a look at the color map for all of the coloring today. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate it. Everything I used today will be listed in the description box below. Thanks everyone, have a fabulous day, and I'll see you soon. Bye!